Hey the berries, bringing you something slightly different than I usually do. Usually it's support gameplay. This time it's introducing a new support champion coming to League of Legends in the very near future. We have a new champion called Milio, and you've probably already seen some stuff about Milio due to leaks. Surprise, surprise. Leaks happening for League new champions. I've never heard of such a thing. So if you are curious to know a little bit about Milio, I'm here to talk about his kit, the splash arts, his general theme, what can you kind of expect from playing him, kind of how to play him in a way, general direction of course, because I haven't actually myself played him, but I have been with a meeting with a bunch of writers for about 45 minutes. I had the opportunity of asking some questions. It wasn't like one-on-one. There were other content creators and stuff there that were able to ask some questions, but some of the stuff they got asked was like lore questions, which I'm not particularly interested in, I'm afraid. Sorry that I'm not more helpful on the lore side of things. But I did get to ask a couple of questions about skill orders and the kind of difficulty level and stuff like that of the champion. So this is what the champion will look like. We have... This is the base splash art. So as you can see, he's a young boy. He's got these kind of fire blobs, which I believe are called flamingos. It's got kind of like a Spanish-esque vibe to it, which I find kind of like as a slight side topic. I don't know if League and Valorant kind of work together on kind of new champion releases, but if you're familiar with the Valorant stuff, a couple of days ago they announced a new agent for Valorant where he's kind of Spanish, I think, and then he's also got like these little blob things that he can throw out, and yeah, I don't know, the similarities here are kind of there, like not fully there, but they're kind of there, and it's kind of like, do they work together or is it just a pure coincidence? But anyway, this is the base splash art. He's meant to be a young boy from Ixtal, for those who care about the lore. The music that you can hear is his champion theme song that also got released a couple of days ago on the League of Legends official channel. He is meant to be played as an enchanter, but let's have a look at the other splash art there. That's the Fey Dragon splash art. I personally think that this looks horrendous. I'm not looking forward to the skin line already. It's kind of off-putting completely, but we'll see what it's like in game. But I think this is one of the more disappointing kind of champion releases with a splash art. It kind of looks a bit creepy, if I'm honest. But yeah, I'm not overly fond of that. I think the base splash art looks much nicer, and when I'm playing him, I'm probably going to be primarily using the base. So let's go into the skills a little bit. I've already mentioned briefly that he is an enchanter support. His passive is called Fired Up. It's very, very simple and easy to use. So all it does is Milio's abilities enchant allies on touch, making their next damage deal a burst of extra damage and a burn on the target. So essentially, whenever you buff allies, your allies get a Nami E, but without the slow effect, and there's like a little bit of burn. I don't think the damage from this is going to be overly too exciting, but we'll have to see how that kind of scales with like AP ratios and stuff. But bear in mind, you won't be picking Milio or building Milio for AP ratios. It's mainly going to be kind of like traditional healing and shielding kind of stuff. Next, let's talk about his Q. So it's called Ultra Mega Fire Kick. I think League are running out of names for spell effects. But Ultra Mega Fire Kick kicks a ball that knocks an enemy back. The ball launched upwards on hit and falls towards an enemy, damaging and slowing enemies in the area upon impact. So it does a little knockback, and then anyone that gets hit by the actual circle gets slowed. You can also use this on minions to knock back a minion to then do a slow. So I'm going to talk about the skill order now before we go into other stuff. I asked Riot specifically, like, will this be an ability where you go either like 2 or 3 points in and then max the other abilities, which are more like healing utility kind of spells? Or will you want to actually like max this ability out like outright? They adamantly said that this ability will probably be left at 1 point. They fully expect it to be left at 1 point. Bear that in mind when we go through the next bunch of abilities, because even on Sona, generally you'd be leaning more towards doing 2 or 3 points in Q, Soraka 2 or 3 points in Q for harassment and laning phase. But yeah, this seems to be like their only kind of crowd control ability on this entire champion. So bear that in mind when you're thinking about the other abilities. This is the only crowd control that this champion has as a support. The only one. Okay, right, then that's got through your head. Let's go through the W. So the W is called Cozy Campfire. Medio creates an empowering zone that heals allies and increases attack range to those inside. The zone follows the ally nearest to the cast point. So the healing inside it, as you can see, they can always change the scaling and stuff. It doesn't, the healing looks absolutely terrible. The attack range is where most of the power of this ability is going to come through. And the radius does seem pretty generous. One of the questions that I asked that got answered by Riot, and I said, are there specific pairings here that you expect to be particularly strong? And what are the repercussions if, say for example, Caitlyn or Kog'Maw get nerfed? Well, they agreed and they said they expect a couple of champions to be particularly well with melee, like the Caitlyn auto attack range and lane. And also the Kog'Maw, they're going to keep an eye on it. Apparently the attack range increase will scale per point. I don't know if there's any AP scaling on there, but there might be a slight AP scaling on how much attack range gets increased. But we have a problem here where it's like with Lulu, for example, you know how she like gives kind of like the Kog'Maw and, you know, the Vayne, and maybe like another hyper, like a Kaiser potentially, or an Azeri. She works particularly well with a few set of champions, but if those champions get giga nerfed, then her power goes bad, right? So Kog'Maw isn't really seen that much, he's pretty garbage. Zeri has been consistently nerfed every single patch because she's strong in pro play, and in solo queue she's not particularly great, especially for the overwhelming majority of players between like unranked to even diamond, honestly. So that already eliminates Lulu from being able to play with a Kog'Maw and a Zeri. Vayne isn't particularly good right now. So Lulu's play rate overall is pretty bad, and having to rely on other people is generally pretty bad. Because Lulu has a tiny bit of nice poke in lane, but other than that, her whole kit is literally based on your teammates have to do the stuff, okay? Because you don't have any control in the lane, or throughout the rest of the game, really. Whereas, like, something like a Nami, for example, or even a Sona, like, because, like, Sona, for example, can work with the whole team, generally. With all the heals and all the shields and all the speed up, there's a lot of utility that she's giving everyone. Going with this kind of kit here is only really going to impact those auto-attacking champions, right? So with that long-range Caitlyn, maybe if you've got like a Kindred, but you know, in the jungle, there aren't that many like champions that overly rely on auto-attack range apart from the AD carries, and if the AD carries get nerfed, then Milio then gets nerfed, and I don't see them having a workaround against this. I think his win rate is going to be solely tied to obviously how strong his abilities are, but how good Caitlyn and Kog'Maw are, and we know that Kog'Maw is not that great right now. So the only you got like Jhin, his auto attack ranges are quite good. You've got Caitlyn, she's doing okay right now, but what if Caitlyn gets nerfed? Maybe she gets too oppressive now in low elo, then they start targeting Caitlyn. So I'll be interested to see how much worth this campfire has with the other AD carries, but my main concern is I hate supports that are tied directly with win rate with how their strongest AD carry pairing is. Like, you know, like Nami and Lucian, for example. And how they treated Nami, because Lucian was too strong, they ended up nerfing Nami more rather than nerfing Lucian, which I thought was absolutely, you know, bonkers. But hey, it is what it is. And here's the second interaction with the W. So that's just the campfire, like, moving around. We've already kind of briefly mentioned that. So it does move around. Apparently this does have quite a long cooldown, so it's not something that you're going to be able to spam, so you're going to have to kind of choose when to use it. And the heal is seemingly AoE, so the single target healing, even though it's like focusing on like the AD carry, like to buff their auto attack range, the heal is AoE, so generally you're probably going to have a couple of people that wanting to stack up on that target. But as I said, the heal looks pretty bad from this video, and I'm not overly impressed with the actual healing, so I don't know how much protection it's going to have, but we'll see. E is a shield, a bit like Karma shield. In fact, pretty much exactly like the Karma shield. Let me bring that back up. So it does have 2 charges though. So Karma shield obviously only has 1 charge. Milio shield charges, there's 2. You can use them again on the same target to give them another shield, and then another burst of speed, or you could give it to 2 different allies in the same team fight. Nothing else really to like talk about this. It's basically Karma shield, but you got 2 charges, which would be quite good. I didn't really see this. This could help the AD carry kite a little bit, but you could use this as both engage and disengage for like one teammate. So you got like a Hecarim on the team, you can give him like a little burst of speed, which is quite nice to help engage. But yeah, nothing too exciting about the actual, you know, the mechanic of the shield. It's just a point and click shield. And then we have the ultimate called Breath of Life. Milio unleashes a wave of soothing flames that heal and remove crowd control effects from allies in range. Now, something interesting to note from this one, it does actually remove suppressions. So stuff like Malzahar ulti, Urgot ulti, I don't think you could probably do it with Mordekai's ult unless you're doing it on yourself and you're the one who got Mordekai's ulti, then you could probably escape the Mordekai's ult that way. But basically it's like a giant Quicksilver sash for everyone, and also heals them up. So it's like a Mikkel's AoE 2.0 Giga Chad. This is obviously like his most powerful ability, and so it should be with his you know, as an ultimate. It's gonna be really interesting because is this enough to save the champion? Because honestly, if you look at his base abilities, I think his base abilities are very, very basic, very simple. Excuse me. And nothing to shout about. I think his ultimate will be particularly powerful. I think if he does become weak, this is probably going to be potentially one of the first things they buff, like reducing its cooldown or stuff like that. But once again, it's like, his whole kit is very simple. When I asked about the difficulty level of Milio, they basically gave him a 2 out of 10 in terms of difficulty, and quote, he's basically a Yuumi that doesn't attach. Which for some people, for some people that don't like complicated champions and stuff, it's just fine. We don't need to have so many different like complicated champions. I've said before, it's kind of annoying how League rework champions and they become a lot more difficult, like Taric and I mean, that's the only real one in support role I can think of, but they've done it to a couple of other champions where like the kit's generally pretty basic, but they made it a lot more, in their rework, they made the champion a lot more difficult to play. Like Urgot, for example, I guess, is a little bit more difficult to play. Mordekaiser as well. They've changed him a few times. But my main problem is that his kit is like Yes, it's like a Yuumi 2.0, but the Yuumi isn't attached, right? It's basically a Yuumi that's not attached. The amount of crowd control that he provides his team is near zero. This Q is honestly pathetic at best. Look, the knockback is like minuscule. They get set back a tiny bit, and then maybe they get slowed here at the end. I guess they're gonna have to, like, if there's slow increase scales per point, and does get like a really big slow at the end of it, then hopefully we will end up maxing this. But can you just imagine laning phase where you've only got 1 point in this, right? And the only thing, and his auto attack range, by the way, they said specifically they lowered it. It's one of the lower ranges on the auto attack ranges compared to the other casters. So you're not going to really be able to do great trades with your auto attacks either. And you're running around doing this W every 20 seconds or something. And then you're doing E's. So in terms of like lane pressure, you're basically like non-existent. So in terms of like actual laning phase, is worse than Yuumi. Worse than current state Yuumi this laning phase is. Because all you can do is protect and hope that things go okay. And don't forget, if they're putting loads of pressure on you and your AD carry, they've nerfed Stealth Beast mana regeneration. So you're not going to be able to keep this uptime, especially for like the first parts of the laning phase for much of it. Your presence in lane is literally just going to be standing way back, shielding, and occasionally throwing down a heal for your AD carry, hoping that they can survive essentially, basically a 1v2. So yeah, I don't know how I feel about that, honestly. It feels like in lane it's going to be more like a spectator sport until you actually finally get into team fights where you can then use your ultimate. But you're going to be very far at the back. You're going to be using your Q to try and peel off assassins, or anyone kind of trying to pursue. But generally, you haven't got a disengage tool like a Nami ultimate, so you are kind of saying to the enemy, right, come and jump my team, and then I'll free them from the initial crowd control, and then we'll try and turn it around from that point onwards. But his kit is kind of like, okay, we want to poke them down, right, with the extra attack range from the campfire. We want to poke the enemy team down, and then usually you kind of like want to say like, okay, you can't progress and come at us. That's kind of be like the strong point here. But it's kind of like the opposite. It's like, okay, we're going to give my allies extra attack range, but then I want you to actually come on to us so I can remove the crowd control, right? So it's kind of like, it doesn't really sync well with the kit. So I feel like in team fights and stuff, it's going to be very awkward because, okay, you're going to provide an extra, you remove some crowd control. You can give a cut of shield to your AD carry, but let's be honest, like the burst damage from assassins still at the moment is ridiculously high. I don't know how much that's actually going to mitigate, and the assassins are still dominant in solo queue, or like a Hecarim just sprinting at your AD carry. So I don't know. I don't know if it's going to be actually feasible to keep them alive, especially when you're already probably going to have a laning phase deficit from the majority of AD carry matchups that you're going to want to play with. I honestly think the only AD carry that you're ever going to want to play this with is probably Caitlyn, maybe Jhin, but I can't see anything else. Like Kog'Maw isn't, no one plays Kog'Maw, and you have to be insanely good to play him, and the majority of people looking to play this champion, especially with such a low baseline skill kit, are people in like iron to like gold. Everyone's obviously going to try him, but when it's, you know, this is like a very new player kind of friendly champion, but the half of the AD carries that you would want to play this champion with aren't like easy champions to play. So I don't know, it definitely feels like some sort of misalignment. I wish I could be like more hyped about a new support champion being released. On a side note, I kind of got a little bit upset when they mentioned the following. This was the following reason, by the way. We have a child male support. There aren't any male enchanters in League. There aren't enough young champions in League. And we need more champions from Ixtal. So they literally just tried to check every single box that they were missing out on this one champion. Because I think when Riot mentioned that we were going to get a male champion, I think the most of us were thinking, oh, okay, we're going to get like an adult for starters, not a little boy. Maybe a more dark themed champion would have been pretty cool, because we don't have a dark theme enchanter. And honestly, see, I was kind of hoping for a champion that had like a higher mechanical baseline, maybe something from Nami a bit onwards, because we have a lot of basic enchanters anyway. Like Sona, for example, is one of the easiest champions you can play in the entire game. We've got Yuumi, literally the easiest champion you can play in the entire game. I don't think the enchanter role needs more very, very easy champions to play. I think there's a huge need for an enchanter where you've got skill expression. I mean, I like doing the enchanter role is my favorite role in League, right? But I like playing Nami the most because there is a skill expression with the bubble and the ultimate. And generally before she's got completely gutted, you were able to do like laning phase harassment, and it was kind of skillful laning phase harassment to the point where like you would get rewarded for doing like the triple bounce with the W, right? Skill expression here, it just feels like it's just like you're just reacting to what the enemy team are doing, and then just throwing like your W on your AD carry whenever they look like they're auto attacking stuff. So as a new player, he looks very like new player friendly. I think if you've been playing the support role for a really, really long time, I think this champion is extremely uninteresting and honestly a massive disappointment for someone who's been playing the game since launch. So yeah, I don't know if anyone from Riot's going to watch this, and yeah, I'm sorry that I'm not very overly keen on the champion. Yeah, like before they mentioned the Yuumi 2.0, I was like, this is basically a Yuumi that's not attached. Like we don't need this, especially like how things are with the enchanter state this year alone. Like they've nerfed enchanter supports, they've buffed tank supports, they've nerfed spell thieves, and then they're introducing an enchanter support, and enchanters feel so bad to play right now, and then they're releasing this kind of champion as in the enchanter role, which unless they do some reverts and spell thieves and stuff, he's gonna feel crap to play, honestly. We'll see. And the fact that they've basically outright line stated that only putting 1 point in Q is basically the way is super disappointing, because it means like they don't even want you to trade in lane. They literally just want your AD carry to do everything. So basically Yuumi 2.0. Will I be playing the champion? Yeah, of course. I hope, honestly, I really hope that I'm proven wrong and that I enjoy playing the champion, and I get to feel like there's some sense of skill expression. And I think if you're a new player to League, I think this is a champion that would be intriguing to play. He's obviously going to cost a lot of blue essence, I guess if you're like a Yuumi one trick and you wanted to like learn an enchanter, I guess the natural progression would be like Yuumi to Milio / Sona, but I don't know, for everyone who's already played support for like a really, really long time, I feel like this champion's almost insulting to us, but I guess we're not like the main demographic audience anymore. They're trying to cater to new support players or to new League players in general. So yeah, I don't know. Last month I was really hyped that I thought we were going to get like maybe even an evil, you know, adult male enchanter, you know, and with a couple of skill expressions and stuff, like, but I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. Let's just hope that I'm wrong and that this champion's really amazing to play and stuff. I think his little blob things are really cool. The amigos, I think the theme of those little blob dudes are pretty cool. And yeah, the blobs look cool. The general theme of the champion as like itself is alright. It's better than what I thought it was going to be after hearing that it was going to be a kid. I think he's definitely got some cute aspects to it. I think my expectations weren't met, but I think considering this is what they've released as a child champion, I think the theme of the champion is fine. I just wish there was just more in his kit. Honestly, just more skill expression, but we'll have to see. I'm just kind of saying the same thing over and over again, but I just kind of wanted to kind of express my disappointment in the champion. And I know it's probably not something that you or maybe even Riot wants to hear. I don't like. I'm almost like biting the hand that feeds me, but I hope that this kind of goes back to Riot. They cook up something for enchanters for next year, and give us something a little bit more stylish. Yeah, they're a bit more stylish, a little bit more aggro in lane, maybe. Being able to control like the fight a little bit more than just relying on the enemy team running at us and then we just press the button and go haha. So yeah. Anyway, all the best. Hope you guys do well. This champion's coming up pretty soon, so make sure you're on the lookout on the release. I believe it's probably coming out sometime around the 22nd, probably around the 22nd of March, give or take a little bit, depending if Riot gets hacked again. And yeah, all the best. Take care. Bye.